Hello and welcome to our episode 8 series. Sorry, episode 8 review, not series review. We will do a series review, but we feel like we need to break it up because I feel like this episode is going to be, for you more so than me, although I don't love it. I know you are probably butthurt as a Star Wars Legends purist about some stuff that happened here. As is my friend who was just texting me. Do you want to just dive right into it? Do you want to go step by step? Like, how do you want to do this? Because in your last episode that you did solo, you broke it down kind of how the episode went. But I feel like with this, it's just like
I don't think we really have to. It's pretty straightforward, and we're really only following one sort of main plot. Well, not really. I mean, something that I mentioned last week was that it felt like there was so many loose ends that they had to tie up, and I think they definitely tried to cram too many of those, in my opinion, into this one episode. So that was one of my issues. That was that, like, and a lot of the questions weren't really answered, but they did try to cram a lot of these plot lines that they started building out all into this one episode.
So do you want to go with the positives first, if there are any for you? It looked cool. The fighting was cool.
Again, that was going to be that was going to be my one positive was the lightsaber fighting and all that stuff, which I've said before was good. The lightsabers themselves look terrible, I think actually even worse in this episode. They straight up looked like people in like a fanfic on YouTube using those Force effects lightsabers, basically. I don't know if you noticed that or felt the same way.
I feel like in episode 5 or episode 6 when Osha ignited the lightsaber at Kemir.
Yeah.
Or Kemir, that's probably the worst that's looked. This is
probably
the second worst that it's looked.
Yeah, maybe we just because we saw more of it in this one and it's just fresh in my mind, it stood out to me. But yeah, they just can't seem, or they don't want to get the white core of the lightsaber as we know it correct for whatever reasons. I don't know.
All right, so the action was cool. Kemir as a character is I like the actor.
I do too.
I like Soul's actor.
Yeah,
I like
me too.
Soul.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll just say real quick before we go into, I think, like, critiquing. Take Osha and May, and this is not like it's just strictly like their the way that their characters. I'm not even saying the actress. I just don't love. I feel like their characters were just shoehorned into this story. I feel like you could have had the story take them out. Obviously, you have to change it a little. You don't have like the witches and that whole motivation of. But I just don't like the Jedi being bad. That's what it comes down to. Is I feel like they were put in to then have the Jedi do something that then the showrunner is able to portray the Jedi as bad. The Sith, which they are Sith now, I guess we kind of can confirm that, are as complicated, good characters in a way.
Yeah,
Darth Plagueis is not. Go.
So, we have that scene in the very beginning where that senator or whoever is speaking to Vernestra, the green alien, a Jedi master, and that to me just felt like a straight up what's the word I'm looking for? Just that whole dialogue was basically almost like one of the show writers. It felt like breaking the fourth wall and just like talking to us, the audience, and it was all just him talking about how much of a problem the Jedi are, how bad they are. They think they're good. Did you feel like that during that scene? Do you know what I'm referring to?
I don't fully understand what you mean by it, though.
Like that, it just felt more like the show writers just putting their whole, like what you just were referring to, the spin on like the Jedi being the bad guys and the Sith being misunderstood, sort of anti-heroes or whatever they're going with. That whole dialogue was just like, it felt almost like, I can't think of the word that I'm looking for right now. It's used in anime a lot, where like basically the villain or something will just like over explain their whole point, and it felt like almost like a break of the fourth wall, like the show writers like coming out and just saying to the audience like, this is what we've all been saying, that it feels like they're trying to put this spin on it, and they're like, yeah, this is exactly what we're doing, and the beloved Jedi aren't actually the good guys, like that type of a thing.
Yeah, okay, now I understand what you mean. If it was 11 o'clock, that word that you're looking for is also on the tip of my tongue, but
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah, it's late.
Damn it! Cut this. No. Okay. Yes, I agree with what you're saying. Do you want to get into the critiques?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already in it. So,
well, I guess Darth Plagueis is revealed early on, so I feel like we can kind of start with that. He's revealed like 6 minutes into the episode.
Yeah,
which I
don't understand.
I knew.
Yeah,
I didn't see spoilers.
Poor placement.
The showrunner just freaking said it. She said it was happening, which I don't love.
No, but I thought previously, meaning like in the past week or whatever leading up to this episode, that they were trying to downplay it and say like, oh well, like, you know, he would fit into this timeline, and they were trying to make it seem like he wasn't coming this season. That's at least from Twitter.
She came out in interviews and pretty much said it was happening, which ruined it for me. And I avoided spoilers pretty well. I feel like this is probably out there for a while, and I avoided spoilers pretty well just for the showrunner to come out and pretty much say it. I'm not a fan of. Does he look cool? Yeah,
he looked good. I'll give him. I'll give them that. Like, they did a good job with that.
This is a spoiler review, obviously, so I can show this real quick. He looked cool. Was the reveal kind of cool? Yeah, it was creepy. He like his creepy hands, and he comes out of the shadows. But I just
but here's my critique on that, because this was actually in my notes on one of the. Yeah, he looks how I would want him to. I think as we would have hoped he would look. And going back to something I said about Kemir in previous reviews, it actually gave that creepy, scary, like ominous sort of feel that I think a Sith should, as opposed to Kemir, who doesn't give that sort of vibe. Yeah. My one critique on that, which I think Disney Star Wars has missed the mark in many of their projects on, is just the overall like impactfulness, and a lot of that has to do with the score, the music. When Darth Plagueis is revealed, it didn't hit me the way that I would have wanted it to. I also think it was too early in the episode, and it kind of really didn't have any bearing on the rest of the episode, like we were kind of led to believe. So, but just to hit on that one point, the music. Yeah, the music was the big thing for me in that, and that's been proven with plenty of the other projects, like I've said, where we have the fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in the Obi-Wan show, where a fan had to actually put in good music, and if you rewatch it with that music, it turns it
a completely different
different scene. Yeah,
he takes the not Duel of the Fates. Yeah, well, there's Duel of Fates in
Duel of Fates is in it, and something else he puts in
the fight in episode. It's from the fight in episode 3. I forget exactly what the score is called, but yes, the music's huge. That can completely change the show. Him coming in at that point is cool. That they're acknowledging, like, yeah, here you go. You haven't seen this guy in live action. Just it was similar to Yoda, which I guess we can kind of just, those are the two reveals, so we can kind of just mention them both real quick.
That was in service. It just like,
here
not,
you go.
Yeah, not necessary. Like, I mean, it was like, I think we were all kind of like wondering where he was.
Yeah,
but
I feel like it was just them grabbing at straws to be like, all right, we want a season 2.
Yeah, and trying to throw us a bone or recreate some sort of an ending similar to like Mando season 2, which was actually an incredible ending. This was, I don't think it was ever meant to be nearly as impactful, but it obviously didn't have the same sort of effect or weight to it. But I actually think Plagueis being revealed maybe at the end of the episode like that, with maybe a more ominous or some sort of a better music to it, would have been much more impactful. Like, because again, like I said, it's just like at that time in the show, at that point, that was like, yeah, we're saying like 5 minutes in, there was still a good portion of the episode left So in my mind, I'm like, oh, like, are we actually going to see Plagueis fully reveal himself, or maybe, like I said in the previous review, maybe wipe out all these Jedi that came to Brendok, or do something cool like that. But if that wasn't the plan, like maybe just I don't know, throw him in at the end and have him poke his head out. I think that could have left like a better taste in my mouth for the ending of the show.
It's about 10 minutes, and I'm just double checking right now.
Yes.
But I would agree with that, because if you're gonna reveal him that early, do something with him.
Right. Exactly. So
all right, go. Next thoughts.
Next thoughts. So the scene then where I have to rewatch and see exactly, you know, what kind of went down, but we at some point pick up with Osha with the mask on, Kimir's mask, and she has some sort of a revelation or something along those lines. But the whole scene where they're then walking out by the rocks, and again, like going back to what I was saying earlier about Kimir not being imposing enough, to which, like you said, now we confirmed he's a Sith. You know, at least I think that's what we're being led to believe, that he's aware that Plagueis is on that island, and most likely is some sort of an apprentice, or in a trial to become his apprentice. As I, you know, not going to say I'm Nostradamus over here and predicted that, because it's a pretty like softball sort of a thing. I think most people expected that. As I said to you off camera, I actually didn't expect them to ever really do it. So that's one, you know, little thumbs up for them there. But so that whole scene where he's talking to her as they're walking on the rocks, and he's just like, you're so powerful, you really should consider being trained. And she basically says like, no, I'm good. And he's like, all right, last chance. But it's just like nothing, like I'm not exaggerating here. That's how the dialogue went. And there's nothing, like, I don't know, there's nothing imposing, there's nothing even like tempting about it, like where a true Sith would be, I think, putting in a little bit more effort, trying to tempt the person, or trying to essentially bully the person into joining the dark side. But he's just like, all right, well, if you don't want to,
You sure?
yeah, you sure? Like, all right. It was, I don't know.
Yeah. I again, take those two characters out. Just the ending of it. We'll just go to the fighting. So they fight. You have May and Osha fighting, Kimir and Soul fighting. Cool. Very cool. I know they brought the choreographer who did Rogue One Darth Vader scene in, which they made that seem like it was like, oh my. I mean, it was a cool scene, but it wasn't like a acrobatic Jedi fighting scene. It would have been cooler if they said they brought the choreographers from the Phantom Menace in to do it. So weird flex, but okay. Just because I was Darth Vader slowly walking down a hallway and swinging his lightsaber.
Right. Great. I mean, great scene, but like,
that's great scene, but not very much choreography. He was just walking straight down. Whereas this was all fighting all over the place, all over that temple. Cool. Soul's death. We'll just do that now. Soul's death. Predictable.
Yeah, the way that they did it, didn't really love that. Also, like, you know, typical Disney.
The bleeding kyber crystal.
Oh, well, we'll get to that. But the typical like Disney Star Wars, how does Osha become that powerful that quickly? Like, she's just, and Soul can't fight back at all. Like that, you know, yeah, I think Soul most likely had to die. Again, this is all just because of narrative issues that they created for themselves. So they have to make these sort of these things just have to happen for the narrative to work. That's, you know, in general not great, but yeah, I was fine with Soul being killed off. I thought once he admitted that, you see Osha pick up the lightsaber, I thought she was just going to ignite the blade right behind him after he, like, as soon as he admitted that, yes, I did kill your mother. I thought that would have been kind of cool. But yeah, my only real issue with that is just like, again, she has some sort of powers being trained as a witch as a kid, but we know that she was never fully trained as a Jedi. And it's just like all of a sudden, I guess the idea is she taps into her rage. She basically gives in to the idea of now she's on board with training to become a Sith, and all of a sudden she's like, God mode power level. So that was my
It's like
my
Rey.
only issue.
Okay, so it's like Rey in the new series.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's just real quick, like, because now I feel like we are kind of following the narrative of the episode. The bleeding kyber crystal. My friend said it best. He was like, Anakin kills younglings. Kyber crystal doesn't bleed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but so the reason for that is because bleeding kyber crystals was never canon until after, until basically the sequel trilogy, or maybe beyond that. And that's something
I understand that, but it's still like you're following this. It's like how you said that they're locked in to kill Soul because of the narrative issues that they set up with this being so close to episode 1.
Well, they clearly don't care. They clearly don't care about canon that's been pre-established. But
yeah, and that's my issue is you could have done an Old Republic show, and you could have justified some of the things being so far in the past that it was forgotten or lost in tradition or whatever it might be. We're 80 years out from Phantom Menace. There's bunch of characters who were alive in episode 1 that are alive now in this show, and just to do that to make it seem cool, I feel like it just, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so
did you like
what, the bleeding of the kyber crystal?
Yeah.
No. Because as you alluded to earlier, I am much more of a fan of Legends, traditional Legends, where the traditional Legends actually, to your point, just kind of makes more sense with what we've seen in films, even in the prequels. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't read these in a while, but these 2 books that I have right here, Dark Empire 2, great graphic novels. I'm pretty sure it's at one point explore where Luke Skywalker goes to a cave where kyber crystals are and actually finds another green kyber crystal, because in traditional Legends, whatever you want to call it, kyber crystals were already the color that they were, and Jedi would seek them out, or they would call to them, or whatever the case was. And I think that was even established in the Clone Wars animated series by George Lucas himself. Just the guy who actually created Star Wars. Not that his opinion matters, but now the way that it's being spun, I don't know the exact time period when they started implementing this, but it's basically the kyber crystal is basically a blank slate, and once the Jedi builds their lightsaber with it, it chooses a color based off of their aura or their personality or something along those lines. And so on the flip side, for a dark side user, in order to bleed it or turn it into a red kyber crystal, they would have to pour their hatred, their anger, all this stuff in it. And I believe there is a Darth Vader comic that goes deep into this, but somebody as powerful as Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, in that narrative, it takes him a lot of effort basically to turn that kyber crystal red. So that, jumping back to this show, that was another one of my issues, is how quickly the kyber crystal bleeds and turns into red. Because again, I haven't followed like the newer comics or anything like that, but from what I understand, in some of the Vader comics that are, I'll say, fairly new, he has a somewhat more of a, compared to this show, a difficult time bleeding his kyber crystal, turning it red.
So I just want to read kind of what you're referencing, because it is from a recent comment. So he takes Master Infila's crystal on the surface of Mustafar, so he goes back to Mustafar.
Yep.
Okay. Takes the crystal out of the curved hilt, and this is Wikipedia, by the way. Using the Force, Vader began subjecting the crystal to the bleeding technique. However, the crystal resisted, subjecting Vader to Force visions of what his life could be if he chose to abandon the dark. In a vision, Vader returned to the light side of the Force and killed his Sith master before returning to his Jedi master Obi-Wan Kenobi and begging. I have like chills reading this because this is storytelling. Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and begging for forgiveness. Vader, having been thrown against the wall of the cave by the living crystal, returned to his feet and refused to give in. Grasping the crystal with both hands, Vader unrelentingly subjected the crystal to his pain and regret. Vader screamed as the cave erupted in a stream of Force energy. Eventually, the crystal's will was shattered by the Dark Lord, not some girl, but sorry, some minor character, who subsequently returned to Coruscant and presented his efforts to his master. Vader later traveled to Galen Erso's office on Coruscant, where he found a stash of kyber crystals left behind by Erso and bled them. And she did it just standing, right? And this is not an attack on...
Just because she got a little bit angry, it just automatically...
I don't even want to say her. I just want to say the character, because we say her and you get hit into like the nerdrotic and all these people like attacking like female characters in Star Wars. That's not what I'm doing. It's just the way the character is written and the way it is presented by the showrunner and the writers just does not show respect to the lore, which you're very much a lore guy. That's even recent. That's recent lore, like you said. That I don't even. A lot of people actually had issues with that when that first came out, and that whole Vader story. But even something as recent as that, which already changed, I'm not going to say canon, but changed the sort of expanded universe lore that we had to explain a lot of these things that were not explained in the shows. They couldn't even stick to that. So this is Luke Skywalker in some of the new stuff also doing this. After his lightsaber was damaged during a fight with the kill droids, Luke Skywalker traveled to find someone who could repair his lightsaber. Skywalker met kyber crystal expert Kuda and Greta. Kuda agreed to fix Skywalker's weapon if he purified a red kyber crystal. He and Greta explained the process of both bleeding and purification. Luke tried to heal the crystal, but he ended up experiencing a Force vision where he was brought to a hall. A Sith who was sitting on a throne welcomed him and told him to approach and tell them his name. The individual then asked Skywalker how and why he had entered their hall. Skywalker was then transported to Mustafar, where he saw Fortress Vader and his father on top of the castle. Skywalker tried another crystal and spoke with Yoda. After waking up, Luke saw the blank crystal turn green. So again, there's precedence for it. Been like the two stories that I've read in these 5 minutes, and we're going long here, so we'll start to wrap up.
But point is, it's not an easy task. One, it's not an easy task. Those 2 paragraphs were like, I felt story in those like 8 sentences, more story in those 8 sentences than I did in the 8 episodes of The Acolyte. Yeah, fair enough.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Someone's Wikipedia summary of the comic is better than the 8 episodes of The Acolyte.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, we are running a little bit longer, and like we was gonna go into some more Plagueis stuff, but I think we'll save that for our
I think that could be saved for
season review. Yeah.
A season review. It might be a series review because I don't know if it's going to get a second season. All right. Do you want to give your score? Just for reference, you scored a 5 for this episode. You scored a 5 for episode 5. You scored a 4 for episode 6. You did not score episode 7 when you went solo last week. What do you feel about this?
I mean, just for the sole fact that Plagueis was in this episode, 3.9.
Okay.
And the 0.9 is from Plagueis.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to stay consistent with like kind of like how I've been reviewing it. So episode 5, because that's when we started reviewing, that got a 4.5 for me. Episode 6 got a 4.1. I'm gonna give this a 4.3 because again, I did enjoy the lightsaber action. So episode 5, that's why I gave it a 4.5, this is out of 10, so it's not like a wow score. I enjoyed the lightsaber fighting. I enjoyed Soul. I enjoyed Kemir. I like how they introduced Darth Plagueis. I don't like how they introduced Darth Plagueis in the sense that he was just a throwaway shot where I feel like they could have maybe done a little more. I don't love the wiping May's memory. That's something we didn't really
didn't touch on that.
But I'm just gonna
we didn't touch on
that real quick.
We didn't touch on Vernestra somehow knowing Kemir, or it was her. Well, she does mention it at the end that it was her pupil before he turned evil. But again,
which
another loose end that was not tied up. Yeah, it was obvious.
Yeah, barely tied up.
But is Vernestra good? Is she bad? Like, there's just it's a mess. Honestly.
Yeah, so don't love that. The Yoda at the end, whatever. Like, fine. I don't have like a
wait. Huge part. Did you feel like there was a time when Vernestra first realizes that Soul goes to Brendock? She hops on a intercom call. Was that Palpatine's voice? Did you notice that?
I didn't know. I'd have to go back and
that's
look
why,
at it.
that's why I was getting confused of like, is Vernestra playing both sides here? Is she like a mole inside of the Jedi?
Would Palpatine be alive?
Yeah. No, maybe not 100 years before the Phantom Menace, because he is a human.
No,
but
he was born 84 BBY. That's I don't think.
Well, we also know that doesn't matter.
That's
But I'm telling you, go back and watch it. I could be completely wrong, and I did turn my brain off a little bit during this episode. But I have to go back and watch it myself now too, because I don't know who she was talking to or what the whole point of that short scene was then, if that wasn't anybody important. It would be crazy if it was, and it did kind of sound like not Darth Sidious's voice, but it sounded like a Chancellor Palpatine type of voice.
Oh, actually, he might have been alive. Wait, all right, he might have been alive.
He might have been. He should be very young, if he is. Again, if they're maybe changing the timeline a little bit here,
we'll check that. That's something we'll have to recheck, and we're kind of just jumping on after watching the episode. So, again, for me, 4.3. They're leaving it open ended. At the end of the day, I can't get behind making the Sith good or trying to make the Sith good. If they want to go down some road where Kimir ends up being just like a great Jedi, but like if they go and make Plagueis into a sympathetic character.
Well, but here's the thing, and we'll go into this in our video tomorrow of the full season breakdown. But if that was Palpatine's voice, then we have a lot more questions of what is Kimir really doing? What is his association? Because if Palpatine's already in the picture, he really has no reason being here.
Again, they could be throwing everything out the window. This is supposed to be being taking place around 132 BBY. Palpatine's born 84 BBY, so he would not be alive yet if they're following what is said, which they probably are not, because this is technically, I think, legend.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wrap up there. This is going to come out tonight, this morning. So I guess it's this morning at this point. And then we'll be putting out our season review on Thursday.
Yep. All right. See you.
Bye.